very warm welcome to the members of Tax Bar Association, our dignitary, our chief guest for today's webinar, Justice Shri Vinitji Kothari Sahab, our today's speaker for today's webinar, CA Advocate Shri Kapilji Goyal, and all the members on this momentous occasion of 38th Foundation Day of Tax Bar Association Jodhpur. It is indeed a matter of great pleasure to be with such dignitaries and the members to celebrate this occasion, and just putting it as a brief history and sharing it with the members that Tax Bar Association, since the late 60s, it was formally constituted on 12th of May 1983. Its constitution was formally approved and was legally accepted on 12th of May 1983, and the first office bearers at the time of constitution of Tax Bar Association were late Shri P.S. Bansali Sahab, who was the president at that time, late Shri P.K. Kalla Sahab, who was vice president at that time, late Shri P.R. Sharma Sahab, who was the secretary of the Tax Bar Association at that time, and Shri Anand Chandji Mehta, who was the treasurer of Tax Bar Association at that time. Presently, Tax Bar Association is having a strength of about 600 members, and Tax Bar Association Jodhpur takes pride in sharing that its members have been elevated to the post of judges, like we have Shri Vinitji Kothari Sahab today, and occupied various positions in administration and government. Tax Bar Association has been successful in organizing various national level seminars, like we had concluded national conference in the first week of January 2020, and has been organizing various events for its members and across the profession. It has been a premier association for Jodhpur and was actively involved in the implementation of GST since 1st July 2017, and it is a matter of great pleasure to share that President of Tax Bar Association is a member of the state level committee of GST grievance cell, which has been formed for the state of Rajasthan, and it is out of all the professional associations, Tax Bar Association happens to be one out of the 3 professional associations to be the member of GST grievance redressal committee. With this background for today's occasion, I would like to invite President Tax Bar Association, V. Vishnu Daga ji, for his welcome address to today's dignitary, chief guest, Justice Shri Vinitji Kothari Sahab, our today's speaker, CA Advocate Kapilji Goyal, and on this momentous occasion of 38th Foundation Day, Shri Vishnu Daga ji. Sir.
Very good evening, all of you. Honorable Mr. Justice Dr. Vinit Kothari Sahib, today's chief guest of this webinar, respected Shri Kapil Goyal Sahab, CA cum advocate from New Delhi, learned faculty in today's webinar, distinguished member of Tax Bar Association, my dear executive members and webinar team, Arpit ji, Rohit ji, Ankit ji and Asutosh ji. First of all, I, on behalf of Executive Committee, congratulate all of you on 38th Foundation Day of our association. We are in debt to our seniors who envisaged this association and built it over the year. At the same time, we are also thankful to our juniors for their contribution towards it. Friends, we are celebrating this day and as mark of our remembrance In continuation of series of webinars, today we have organized various activities, includes provision of food to different abled, blood donation camp, which was well participated by members at large. As a matter of record, I also congratulate all Jodhpurites on Foundation Day of our city. Friends, today we have with us Honorable Justice Vinit Kothari Sahib, who hails from our city and presently placed at Madras High Court. Mr. Justice Vinit Kothari Sahib, who has vast experience of handling income tax matters, will share some words of wisdom with us. Friends, it is a matter of proud for all of us that Honorable Kothari Sahib is also member of our Tax Bar Association Jodhpur. His blessings are remains always for all of us. Sir, your presence will certainly add much glory to this webinar on the occasion of Foundation Day. Topic of today's webinar is addition under section 68 to 69, read with section 115 BBE, which will deliberate by respected Kapil Goyal Sahab, very much popular name in the tax profession, which does not need any introduction. Kapilji has deep knowledge on the subject, and we are all be greatly benefited by his deliberation. That is for sure. We are very much thankful to Goyal Sahab for giving his valuable time, not only today, but also many times in past for the benefit of all of us. We welcome you, sir. Friends, in last 1 year, we have undertaken several activities. You have been a part of those activities. Yet for the information of our chief guest and learned faculty, I would like to narrate some of the key activities of our association. We have number of study circle meets and seminars for the members, family meet with family of members, Holy Sneh Milan with department officials, income tax and GST. National Tax Conference is the one of the most popular event for last 1 year. I do not hesitate in accepting that all these milestones were not achievable without the harmonized efforts of all of us. I would like to thank all of you from the core of my heart. I promise that we shall remain committed to do the best of activities for the maximum benefit of our members. Once again, I welcome you all. Please do remember, stay safe and stay updated. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, Arpit, continue.
Thank you very much, Nagaji. Now I request our chief guest for today's webinar, Honorable Justice Dr. Vinitji Kothari Sahab, to grace the occasion with his keynote address and enrich us with his vast experience and knowledge. Sir.
Thank you. I hope you all can listen me and see me also. I'm unmuted on my video and mic both. Webinar has taught us new ways of getting in contact with the people and particularly professionals. My dear friends, brothers and sisters also, if they are there, very happy to be part of this webinar organized on the 38th Happy Birthday of Tax Bar Association of Rajasthan at Jodhpur Tax Bar Association. I distinctly remember even 1983 event of its formation and the stalwarts who initially framed or constituted this Tax Bar Association. I have seen all the three names who are unfortunately not in this world now. Shri P.S. Bhansali Sahab, Shri P.K. Kalla Sahab and P.R. Sharma Sahab. All people of great eminence, great acumen, knowledge, in action. Actually, they provided very true and good leadership to the profession. And we are lucky to have been blessed by such leaders in our beautiful town of Jodhpur. One of these legendary members was also my elder brother, Shri B.M. Kothari sir, who is also joined the club in heaven with these three people. He was my guru and my mentor, I would say. Besides my guru in the legal field, Sri Marudhar Midul sir, a very senior advocate of Jodhpur, he is also no more in this world now. All these people have really taught us how the profession, and that too in the tax field, should be really conducted by the young professionals. I'm very happy that after the journey of 38 years, the tax bar association is still very active and now led by a very, very flamboyant, I would say, very active, flamboyant and proactive president, Shri V.P. Daga, and his team, Shri Arpit Haldia, Mr. Rahul, and other people. And the work of the tax bar association, like any other good association, is to lead from the front. And I'm sure under their able leaderships, the academic activities and other related activities, including the family gatherings, which VP Daga sir just now mentioned, should continue, because ultimately we all are members of a family which carry on a particular kind of profession. I am particularly very happy that eminent people like Mr. Kapil Goyal, who is CA advocate practicing in Delhi High Court and Supreme Court, has been invited to address the audience in this webinar on very important issues of additions and taxing under section 68, 69, etc. and then taxation under section 115 capital double BE. The recent amendments, as you know. I would not go into the details, of course, Mr. Kapil is there to do all this. But friends, I would just give my brief kind of intro on the subject of taxation. After this government has taken over since 2014, the taxation world has seen drastic changes. While the indirect taxation has seen GST as a major overhaul of the taxation system, as you know, subsuming 14 indirect taxes into that, the direct taxation also has undergone a sea change, as they say. And the effort of the government seems to be to collect the tax from all possible resources in a manner so that the circulation of black money and tax avoidance, I would say, because the distinction between tax avoidance and tax evasion is gradually fading away. I see this concept being discussed even in international conferences, which I attend on annual basis. As you might be knowing, I am a member of the International Association of Tax Judges, also a director on the board of that association. And every year they invite me to deliver papers on international taxation. I can't claim to be an expert of international taxation, but I certainly feel that that subject is also of great importance. And young professionals perhaps cannot avoid but learning that too also. All chapters, all provisions of Income Tax Act, as we all know, are not only complex, but the whole amalgam of the scheme of the Act has to be understood in a very comprehensive manner with the object of the Act kept in mind. So all these provisions recently introduced after demonetization, as you all know, there was a drastic change in the provisions. And the amalgam of various acts, money laundering, Benami provisions, income tax law, and others were amended, updated, and fell in tune with the international standards to bring in the revenue to the maximum extent. And this provision also, as you know, the 60% rate of tax imposed on the undisclosed incomes taxed in the hands of the assessee under this provision, which Mr. Kapil Goyal will deal with in detail, is meant to tax essentially the unaccounted money which came into the bank accounts of the people after demonetization, and they were given some time period to deposit back their cash amounts in the bank accounts, and the bank coffers filled up with a lot of money, and most of them the government thought was unaccounted. So therefore, this provision was enacted, imposing a very high rate of tax to bring in the tax revenue arising from that. So these are all provisions of the Act meant to collect the maximum revenue in accordance with law. And as you know, the law has to be there, because without authority of law, no tax can be collected. Article 265 of the Constitution of India prohibits that. And therefore, all this is there. I would not take much of your time. I was supposed only to give my inaugural address, and since I have now crossed 60, people expect me to bless also the conferences and younger generations. And therefore, I happily inaugurate it, and I am very happy to be part of this webinar. I will continue to listen to Mr. Kapil Goyal also, because besides holding our online course through our residence offices, on which I am presently in my chamber for that purpose, also after finishing my court work, I have to do some chamber work also. But I would continue to listen, Mr. Kapil Goyal, and wish you all the best, Kapil. And I'm very happy to meet you, of course, for the first time today, but many more meetings to follow. And I thank the organizers, Mr. Daga and his team, and all the listeners who have very kindly heard me for 5-10 minutes. And I wish you all the best. Please continue with the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank you.
words of wisdom and enlightening us with your thoughts over the subject and what the younger professionals should do in order to move ahead in the profession. And we would like to seek your blessings in the coming future also on behalf of Tax Bar Association. Thank you very much, sir, once again. As part of our the momentous occasion of 38th Foundation Day for Tax Bar Association, we have received messages for best wishes from all the 3 departments, that is Income Tax, CGST and SGST. We would like to play the messages of good wishes received by our association on this occasion. I would request Rohit to play those messages.
Principal CIT श्री नरेंद्र कुमार जी, जोधपुर टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन 38th स्थापना दिवस की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं एवं सभी सदस्यों को बहुत बहुत बधाई। जोधपुर टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन की एक बहुत ही गौरवमयी परंपरा रही है। मुझे ये जानकर बहुत खुशी हुई कि इसी अपनी सामाजिक सरोकार एवं बौद्धिक संपन्नता की दोहरी परंपरा को आगे बढ़ाते हुए 38वें फाउंडर्स डे पर विभिन्न कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन किया गया है। आज की विषम परिस्थितियों में भी इस तरह का कार्यक्रम बनाना जोधपुर टैक्स बार के सदस्यों की जीवटता दिखाता है। मैं इसके लिए श्री दागा जी एवं अन्य सभी सदस्यों का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूँ। कार्यक्रम के सफल समारोह के लिए मेरी बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
Manav Gupta, Commissioner in CGST Department at Jodhpur. First of all, I congratulate all the members of Tax Bar Association on their 38th Foundation Day. CGST Department had a very close relationship and interaction with Tax Bar Association during last 2 years. So outreach activities organized by the department and then Tax Bar Association. Some of the members of the Tax Bar Association have been very helpful in our training needs, and I thank them for that. It has been a mutually beneficial relationship, and the association has played a very pivotal and important role and contributed immensely in implementation of GST. They have raised pertinent issues for betterment and easier implementation of GST law. I again congratulate the Tax Bar Association and wish them a very bright future. Thank you. Tax Bar Association को तीसवां साल दिवस मनाने का इस अवसर पर विभाग की ओर से टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के सभी सदस्यों हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं प्रेषित करता हूं। टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के द्वारा समय समय पर व्यापारियों को आने वाली समस्याओं के संबंध में विभाग को अवगत करता है और विभाग द्वारा भी टैक्स बार के द्वारा प्रेषित ज्ञापन पर पूरी सकारात्मक कार्रवाई की जाती है। मैं आपको आश्वस्त करता हूँ कि इसमें यदि टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के द्वारा विभाग को आने वाली किसी समस्याओं के बारे में विभाग को बताया जाएगा तो उसका अतिरिक्त मुझे बताया गया है कि टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के द्वारा टैक्सेशन के अलावा अन्य सामाजिक सरोकार से संबंधित कार्य भी किए जाते हैं, जैसे मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि ऐसे सामाजिक कार्यों के लिए टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन साधुवाद मानता है। 2017 से नवीन व्यय प्रणाली जीएसटी का आगाज हुआ। जीएसटी के सफल क्रियान्वयन में टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के सदस्यों का सक्रिय सहयोग रहा है। मैं अपेक्षा रखता हूं कि जीएसटी के जो पूल रिटर्न्स और जो पूल टैक्स है उसको जल्दी से जमा करवाकर टैक्स दूसरे विभाग और राज्य सरकार को सहयोग करना चाहिए। इसके अलावा किसी से संबंधित उसके विस्तार के संबंध में भी सक्रिय सहयोग करना चाहिए। मैं टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के भविष्य की कामना करता हूँ। साथ ही अंत में कोरोना से डरे, सतर्क रहें, सुरक्षित रहें। जय।
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Rohit. And in continuation of the good wishes being received on this momentous occasion, we have also received some messages from our members of the Tax Bar Association spreading across various generations, and we would like to share those good messages and best wishes with all the members who are present in this webinar. And I request Rohit to please play those messages as well.
सदस्य टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन जोधपुर को 88वें स्थापना दिवस पर हमारे सभी सदस्यों एवं उनके परिवारजनों के स्वस्थ एवं उज्जवल भविष्य की शुभकामनाएं प्रेषित कर रहा हूँ। मेरा निवेदन ये भी है कि ऐसा संभव प्रकृति के नियमों के अनुरूप चलें तो उचित रहेगा। धन्यवाद।
मुझे ये जानकर अत्यंत प्रसन्नता हुई कि जोधपुर टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन 38वां स्थापना दिवस मनाने जा रही है। इसके लिए मैं जीएल राठी एसोसिएशन के अध्यक्ष श्री विष्णुजी डागा, सचिव श्री राजपूत जी और सभी पदाधिकारीगण एवं सम्मानित सदस्यों को हार्दिक बधाई एवं शुभकामनाएं देता हूँ। एसोसिएशन का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन द्वारा गठन 12 मई 1923 को हुआ। इसके गठन एवं संचालन में स्वर्गीय श्री पी.एस. बंसाली जी, सोमलाल जी चौधरी, अश्विनी कुमार जी भट्ट, जगमल जी लोढ़ा, बी.एन. कोठारी जी, श्री नरोत्तम जी बेड़तिया, श्याम जी ललवाणी, श्रीमल जी जैन, अनिला जी गहलोत, सुरेंद्र जी चोपड़ा, प्रकाश जी छागीर, श्री कन्हैया जी राठी एवं अन्य वरिष्ठ सदस्यों ने नींव के स्तंभ का कार्य किया। मुझे भी इनके साथ कार्य करने का अवसर मिला। मैं इनकी कार्यशैली की सराहना करता हूँ तथा सभी को प्रणाम करता हूँ। टैक्स बार का मुख्य उद्देश्य विभाग एंड टैक्स पेयर्स के मध्य एक कड़ी का रूप में कार्य करना होता है। समय समय पर टैक्स की समस्याओं के समाधान हेतु उच्च अधिकारियों को ज्ञापन दिया जाता है एवं सेमिनार आयोजित करके मेंबर्स को नॉलेज का अपडेशन किया जाता है। वर्तमान टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के अध्यक्ष श्री विष्णु जी डागा एवं सचिव श्री राजपूत जी एवं सभी पदाधिकारियों को धन्यवाद दूंगा जिन्होंने मेंबर्स के हितों को ध्यान में रखते हुए बहुत अच्छा कार्य किया। इस वर्ष जनवरी माह में नेशनल टैक्स कॉन्फ्रेंस का आयोजन भी किया गया तथा
वेट ऑडिट वर्ष 17 की तारीख बढ़ाने हेतु टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के माध्यम से रिट दायर की गई, जिसके कारण तारीख बढ़ाकर 12 फरवरी की गई, जिससे टैक्स पेयर्स एंड मेंबर्स को बहुत बड़ी राहत मिली। अभी कोरोना महामारी के कारण हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी माननीय श्री नरेंद्र जी मोदी साहब द्वारा 25 मार्च को पूरे देश को लॉकडाउन कर दिया गया। ऐसी स्थिति में भी टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के द्वारा वेबिनार भी कराई गई ताकि मेंबर्स का नॉलेज अपडेट होता रहे। अंत में इस स्थापना दिवस पर ये प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन भविष्य में भी सेमिनार और मेंबरशिप के लिए अधिक से अधिक कार्य करती रहेगी ताकि नई ऊंचाई पाने में सफल एवं सक्षम हो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अंत में मैं रूल मंत्री के साथ विराम दूंगा। काम ऐसा कीजिए कि पहचान बन जाए, कदम ऐसे चलिए कि निशान बन जाए, जीवन को ऐसे ढंग से जिए कि आने वाले कल की निशान बन जाए, आने वाले कल की निशान बन जाए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। वंदे मातरम। धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार। टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन जोधपुर गत कई वर्षों से नगर में बहुत सक्रिय रहा है। पूर्व में इसके नेतृत्वकर्ता बहुत डायनेमिक लीडर्स रहे हैं और टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के माध्यम से करदाताओं की समस्याओं को शासन और प्रशासन तक सक्रियता से पहुंचाते रहे हैं। टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के सदस्यों के बीच आपसी समन्वय बनाए रखने, ज्ञान को शेयर करने में कई कार्यक्रमों के माध्यम से इसके पूर्व के नेतृत्वकर्ताओं ने बड़े प्रभावी प्रयास किए थे। मैं उन सभी पूर्व नेतृत्वकर्ताओं को आज टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन के इस 38वें स्थापना दिवस के अवसर पर अपनी ओर से आभार प्रकट करता हूं।
Thank you, Rohit. And with this, moving ahead and taking the webinar to its next halt, I request CA Advocate Sri Kapilji Goyal to take this session ahead with this presentation on the topic under income tax. He needs no introduction. He is very known to all. So handing over to you, Kapil Goyal ji. It's all yours now.
Thank you, RPG. First of all, sir, I'm audible, RPG, properly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
RPG, I'm okay. My thanks to the Jodhpur Tax Bar Association, and especially my good friend, and I say my elder brother Daga Saab, who is very close to me, and he's a great man. He's always there for the cause of the bar, and he has given me this opportunity to share this and to share this occasion with one of the personality, I can say, for whom I have highest and greatest of respects, which I have gathered from the judgments of my lords and honorable lordship Justice Vineet Kothari Saab. And I convey, sir, once again my kind regards to you, and it is a matter of a great happiness for me as a student of law also and as a practitioner also to have you here, sir, in this webinar, sir. And my regards to all the senior colleagues in the bar and my friends, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, I would like to start with because this is a very important occasion for the bar. I would like to kickstart my discussion, sir, with very important observations of late Shri Palkiwala Saab, sir, Nani Palkiwala Saab, who in his concluding paragraph of his preface to the 8th edition of his monumental work, the book called The Law and Practice of Income Tax, Mr. Palkiwala, sir, late Shri Palkiwala Saab, has observed, sir, every government, I quote, every government has a right to levy the taxes, but no government has the right in the process of extracting the tax to cause misery and harassment to the taxpayer and the gnawing feeling that he is made the victim of palpable injustice, sir. So I believe these are the very guiding words of late Shri Palkiwala Sahab, who is the ideal for every advocate and every person who is practicing in the law, sir. So today our topic, my topic which has been given to me is relating to section 68 to 69D of the Income Tax Act and 115 BBE. As sir, these two sections or these two parts of my deliberation, one relating to section 68 to 69D and second in relation to 115 BBE, both respectively the sections 68 to 69D are contained in chapter 6 of the Income Tax Act, and section 115 BBE is contained in chapter 12 of the Income Tax Act. Now chapter 6 of the Income Tax Act, sir, which contains this section relating to 68 to 69D dealing with unexplained income, is a chapter titled as aggregation of income, total income. And as far as sir section 115 BBE is concerned and chapter 12 is concerned, it is the special rate of tax, sir. Now sir, this Income Tax Act, as lordships has rightly said, that definitely after 2014 the government has been very focused about detecting the areas where tax evasion has been there, and it is laudable also. But at the same time, sir, there has been some important and rudimentary principles and elementary principles of the taxation which have withstood time and which have always remained there in the income tax law, sir. I would like to just start my discussion with an important point and basic concept before coming to section 68 to 69D, before giving my thoughts on that, sir, my humble thoughts on that. That Income Tax Act has a charging provision, sir, in Income Tax Act section 4, and in that charging provision it is said that income of an assessee will be taxed which he has earned in a particular year. Now section 4 is the charging section, sir, but we get very important definition of total income in the dictionary clause of the Income Tax Act, sir, where section 2 clause 45 is there, which defines total income as follows, sir. Total income means the total income, total amount of income as referred to in section 5 and as computed in the manner laid down in the act. So section 2 clause 45, sir, is one of the important provision and significant provision defining what will be the total income of an assessee and a taxpayer, sir, in the Income Tax Act. It has two limbs and elements, sir. One, it refers to section 5, which gives us scope of total income, and it refers that the income will be computed in the manner which is laid down in the act. Now section 2 clause 45, as I said, sir, it refers firstly to section 5. It is provision dealing with section scope of total income, where it is elaborated and described. If assessee is a resident, what will be his scope of total income? If he is a non-resident, what will be his scope of total income, and likewise. So section 5 gives us, sir, what is scope of total income depending upon the residential status of the taxpayer. Section 14 is the important provision, sir, another important provision which gives us 5 heads of taxes, and it is very important, sir, 5 heads of tax, because it although says as 5 heads of tax, I believe they have been 5 sources of income, sir. Now what are the 5 heads of taxation, sir, which are stipulated and specified in section 14 is salary head, house property head, business head, capital gains head, and income from other sources. We have the income to be computed in 5 heads, but tax is on total income and it has to be determined in the manner which is given in the law, and manner is section 14, where I have to give where we have to compute the income of an assessee in 5 heads. Now rules of game in determining 5 heads is different in all the heads, sir. So this is one important part, sir, that section 2 clause 45 defines total income, section 5 gives us scope of total income, section 14 gives us heads of taxation, and section 4 is the charging section. The important thing which is there is that before coming to the unexplained income and deemed income under section 68 to 69D read with 115 BBE, it is very important to understand that what is the significance of 5 heads of taxation in the income tax law. The 5 heads of taxation basically deals with 5 different streams of revenue, 5 different sources of income of an assessee, and how income will be computed in those 5 heads is adumbrated and it is specified and narrated in these 5 heads of taxation, sir. Since lot many assessments, sir, which have happened in assessment year 17-18, it relates to the income of the assessee who is engaged in the business. So business head is one of the very important heads, although other heads are also important, but for the practical discussion today, for the purpose of today's discussion, the provisions of section 28 to section 43 capital C, that is the entire business head, is of utmost importance. That is till section 44, I should say, section 28 to section 44 of the Income Tax Act. So these all these sections, sir, says that if I summarize these sections, that income of an assessee has to be computed who is engaged in the business. The charging provision in the business head is, sir, section 28. Now, very first clause, sir, says business income of an assessee which is to be charged to tax is the profits and gains of the business which he has earned. The important and significant phrase which I want to elaborate here is the meaning of the phrase profits and gains. As total income, I said, sir, it is to be computed in the manner laid down in the act. Then business income has to be computed in the manner given in the business head. And in that, we have to compute the profits and gains of the business, sir. Now, when we talk about that profits and gains of the business are taxable under in the Income Tax Act, then I believe, sir, it is the real business income. It is the real income which an assessee engaged in business which he has earned should be made taxable, not the hypothetical, notional, or some theoretical income should be taxed. So that is the spirit when we read the income tax law as an integrated code of taxation. Then the result will be this, then the outcome will be this, and corollary will be this, that section 28 read with section 4 read with section 2 clause 45 will say that only income which the assessee has earned, the profits and gains which an assessee has earned from the business should be made taxable. And in that I want to highlight one ruling, old ruling of the Supreme Court of India, sir, which has been applied and which is even today a very good law and which is being followed in one after the other in various orders, sir. That is the Supreme Court decision in case of Harprasad and Company. The citation of this Harprasad and Company Honorable Apex Court decision is 99 ITR volume 108. 99 ITR 108. Now, the determination of the income in the manner given in the Act is very important. And as far as business head is concerned, it is the profits and gains which he has earned in the from the business should be taxed, and that should be after allowing all the deductions and expenditure which he has incurred. So that is what I want to signify at the outset. If an assessee's income who is engaged, genuinely engaged and admittedly engaged and factually engaged in a business has to be engaged, then only real business income should be taxed, and that real business income can only be computed after giving all the expenditures which a businessman has incurred in earning the business income, sir. So if I contrast this, sir, the Harprasad and Company 99 ITR 108 tells us that gross receipts are not taxable in the law. It is not the gross receipts which are made charging points, sir. It is the net income. Net income means the real income which the assessee has earned has to be taxed, especially in the business head, section 28. So when I come to section 68 to 69D, sir, after crossing all the 5 heads of taxation and 5 different sources of income, then these section 68, etc., sir, all are deeming provisions. The nature and characteristics which are there common in all the section 68, 69, 69 capital A, 69 capital B, 69 capital C, and 69 capital D. In my humble reading, sir, all these provisions are deeming provisions first. And we have from Honorable Apex Court various case laws and various judicial pronouncements which have time and again propounded how the deeming fictions have to be interpreted. That is one thing, that all sections 68, 69, 69A, 69B, 69C, 69D are deeming fictions, sir. And they talk about a deemed income. Second important and common characteristics in all these 5 provisions, sir, which I want to highlight at the outset is that they are not dealing with undisclosed income or unaccounted income as such. They are dealing with unexplained income or unexplained expenditure or unexplained investment or unexplained money. They are basically dealing with the unexplained income, especially in relation to section 68 where unexplained cash credit is talked about. So this section 68 to 69D, when they are deeming fictions, they deem that in a particular and a specified scenario or circumstance as specified in the sections, if assessing officer is not satisfied with the explanation of the taxpayer, then he may deem the income, the credit or investment or expenditure or money to be the income of the assessee concerned. So first characteristic I told, sir, it is a deeming provision. Second characteristic, I believe in all these sections what we are discussing is the nature of the income is the unexplained income. We are not saying that it is this sections does not define what is undisclosed income, or for that matter what is out of books transactions or what is clandestine transactions. They are basically dealing with unexplained income, unexplained expenditure, unexplained investment, unexplained money. Third important point is, in these all these five provisions in section 68 to 69D, in my humble opinion, is that which is common feature is that all the sections are giving discretion to the assessing officer. So this is of utmost importance in my subsequent deliberation. In none of these sections says that if an explanation of assessee is not satisfactory, even then addition has to be made. In all these provisions, the discretion is available to the assessing officer, and discretion from Benjamin Cardozo's time, sir, I will say with respect, then discretion has to be exercised in a methodological manner, in a judicial manner, after considering the entire gamut and conundrum of the facts. So first point I told, sir, that these all provisions are deeming fictions. Second, I told that the deeming fiction is restricted to decide that it is an unexplained income. The particular income which is falling in section 68 to 69D, it stops saying that it is unexplained income. After say, it does not say that what will be the color of that income. Third, all these provisions gives discretion. The word used in all these provisions is word may, meaning thereby even if an assessee is not able to give an explanation which is not found satisfactory to the assessing officer, learned assessing officer, even then addition is not must. So fourth important point, sir, which I found out in all this common feature in all the provisions of section 68 to 69D is that assessing officer must form an objective opinion and satisfaction on the explanation of the assessee. Now this opinion and satisfaction of the assessee, of the assessing officer, explanation of the assessee is again of very importance, sir. Like discretion, I was saying, if discretion is not properly exercised by the assessing officer in a particular facts, then that particular addition might not pass the muster of the law. Likewise, sir, I am saying in fourth point that in all these provisions, assessing officer is under a bounden duty, and if it is of primordial importance that assessing officer must record a proper satisfaction and objective satisfaction on the explanation tendered by the assessee in the assessment proceedings, expenditure, credit, investment, as the case may be. So if there is no proper objective satisfaction, if there is no proper satisfaction recorded after application of due application of mind, then in that scenario also the addition under deeming fiction of section 68 to 69D may not pass muster of the law, in my humble and submission, sir. Fifth point, sir, which I found out is that since we are talking about deeming fictions, and since assessing officer is under a duty to record his satisfaction in the assessment order while drawing adverse inference against the assessee, then it is very important to understand, sir, in all these deeming fictions there cannot be further scope of the deeming fiction. Even if an assessing officer applies section 68 to an case of an assessee and says that an item of a cash credit is deemed to be unexplained within the meaning of section 68 of the Act, even in that scenario, sir, in my humble opinion, it cannot decide that the concerned cash credit is not business income. Because to say that a cash credit is not business income, it is one thing, and to say that a cash credit is unexplained is another thing. So I want to humbly point out, with reference to 5 heads of taxation and with reference to section 14, and in juxtaposing section 68 to 69D, that just because a credit is deemed to be unexplained within the meaning of section 68, etc., that does not mean, or that does not ipso facto or on its own decide the nature of the income or the quality of the income or the color of that income in the hands of the recipient, sir. For example, if an assessee is there, sir, who is engaged in the business, and in his books of the business there is a credit coming out, there is a credit entry, and if that credit entry is found to be unexplained by the assessing officer, that does not say that will not allow him to say in section 68 that this credit is not the business income of the assessee. So I want to draw attention to, sir, two old Supreme Court rulings, sir, which can be of utmost importance in this today's sir colloquium. One Supreme Court decision, sir, which I found out, old Supreme Court order, is that there will be a presumption that if an item is credit is found in the books of an assessee who is engaged in a business, then that credit will be called as business income unless otherwise proved by the assessing authority. So presumption is there that if a credit is found in the books of a businessman, then that credit will be business income unless otherwise proved by the revenue. So I am telling, sir, two Supreme Court decisions, old Supreme Court rulings on this in this context. One is 35 ITR 416, 35 ITR 416, and second is 34 ITR 807. 35 ITR 416 first, and second 34 ITR 807, sir. Sir, it is in this context that if an assessee is having an unexplained cash credit, who is a business assessee, who is engaged in business, then that unexplained cash credit will be called as anonymous income, or will be called as an income which can still be called as a business income as per the principles and aesthetics of the law. So in my humble opinion, sir, I'm just repeating what 5 features of this, common features of this 68 to 69D I said, sir. One, all these provisions are deeming provisions. All these provisions are dealing with unexplained income, unexplained cash credit, unexplained investment, unexplained expenditure, unexplained money. All these provisions are discretionary provisions. Assessing officer, the competent authority is assessing officer to apply these provisions, and that assessing officer has judicial discretion, has discretion available whether to invoke the deeming fictions of this law against an assessee or not. And in my humble opinion, discretion means a judicial discretion guided by the principles of law, as Benjamin Cordzous have said, sir. Third, I said, sir, all these provisions requires objective formulation of an opinion and satisfaction at the end of the assessing officer before an adverse inference is drawn under these deeming provisions. So without objective formulation of this opinion and satisfaction, which is sine qua non in my humble opinion, the invocation of deeming provisions might not pass the muster of the law. Next, I said, sir, the persons against whom these deeming fictions can be applied is the assessee only. That is the assessee who has made the investment or in whose books this credit is coming. These provisions of deeming fiction cannot be extended to further representative assessees. Like, for example, an assessee is there, sir, who made the deposit in the bank account, cash deposits. By that time, the security assessment started and income tax assessment started. The person who made the investment or the deposit expired and deceased. Now, income tax assessing officer wants to ask the legal hire of the assessee under section 159. Please tell the source of the deceased, from where investment, subject investment or deposit was made. The legal hire of the deceased, sir, has an argument that I do not have any knowledge from where this deposit or amount was brought by the deceased. So I am not having any knowledge, and so I cannot explain the source of that because I was not involved in those transactions with the deceased. So this litigation, this issue came up before the tribunal benches and some courts, sir, where it has been held and propounded that the deeming fiction of section 68 to 69D can be applied on the assessee who made the investment, who was the actual investor, not to the assessee who is a deemed assessee, like here the legal here. So there has been a school of thought, a legal school of thought, that section 68 to 69D being a deeming fiction cannot be should be limited to the assessee who has made the investment and should not be extended to the assessees like deemed assessees, because there cannot be extension and expansion of the deeming fiction is the view of the court, some courts of law, sir. Next, I said, sir, in invocation of all these deeming fiction, in my humble opinion, 68 to 69D, even though we are dealing with unexplained cash credit, even though we are dealing with unexplained investment, even though we are dealing with unexplained expenditure, etc., even there, when assessing officer uses his discretion and when assessing officer forms his opinion, objective opinion, then he has to not forget that and consent that ultimately it is the real income only which has to be taxed, sir, on net base. It is not the gross receipt per se which becomes taxable, in my humble opinion, sir. Even in section 68 to 69D, the concept of real income should be used, maybe with care and caution, but concept of real income which has been adumbrated and which has been very elaborately told by this Honorable Apex Court in various rulings. The concept of real income, sir, has to be kept into consideration while applying deeming fictions of section 68 to 69D also. So with this introduction, sir, of section 68 to 69D, because it is of utmost importance to understand that if section 68, section 69, 69A, 69B, 69C, 69D, sir, is wrongly invoked by the assessing officer, learned assessing officer in the first place, then ex consequentiae, as a natural corollary, 115 BBE will automatically collapse, because section 115 BBE has an important jurisdictional fact, has an important primordial requirement that 115 BBE can only be applied special rate of tax where the income is referred to in section 68 to 69D. So if invocation of section 68 to 69D is not validly invoked as a matter of jurisdictional fact, then 115 BBE, in my humble opinion, may not pass the muster of the law. So reading together section 68 to 69 capital D alongside 115 BBE, it is sine qua non that valid and correct invocation of section 68 to 69D can only attract the tax specified in 115 BBE, sir, which I will just come to. So some rulings, sir, which of Supreme Court I want to mention at this junction, which will help us to understand the anatomy of these deeming fictions of section 68 to 69D, sir. One ruling I want to mention, sir, is in the case of Supreme Court in the case of P.K. Noorjahan. The Supreme Court ruling is reported in, sir, in case of P.K. Noorjahan in 237 ITR volume 570. Now 237 ITR 570, sir, Supreme Court ruling, Honorable Apex Court ruling, was dealing with a scenario that even if an explanation of an assessee there, P.K. Noorjahan, was not found to be satisfactory, then is it must that addition should be made in section 68 to 69D? The Honorable Apex Court opined that since the word used in the section is may, so it is the discretion of the assessing officer to use these sections with care and caution with proper judicial application of mind. So that P.K. Noorjahan ruling 237 ITR 570, in my humble opinion, is still an important law and is to guide the correct invocation of these provisions, sir. Second thing, sir, I want to mention here is, apart from this may word, that how a satisfaction or objective formulation of opinion has to be framed in the assessment order so that 68 to 69D can be said to be validly invoked. Although, sir, there has been lot of jurisprudence on the word satisfied and opinion in various laws, not only in income tax law but in other laws also, IPC and other laws, sir. But I have found, sir, one ruling of the Honorable Apex Court, which is a very recent order, and there the Honorable Apex Court, speaking through Honorable Justice, His Lordship Justice R.F. Nariman Sahab, Rohinton F. Nariman Sahab, sir, in the case of, this is a very important order, sir, considering entire conundrum of the word satisfied and opinion. So the name of the Supreme Court decision on word satisfied is, sir, 63 Moons Technology Private Limited. 63. The name of the case is 63 Moons Technology Private Limited. The Supreme Court decision is dated 30th April 2019 and paragraph number 37 to 42. 63 Moons Technology, sir, Supreme Court ruling in para 37 to para 42, that is 30th April 2019, was discussing some provisions of the Act of Companies Act, sir, where the language was where the central government is satisfied. Now, in that background, the Honorable Apex Court covered the entire conundrum of word satisfied, how an authority can be said to have been satisfied, although it depends upon the facts of each case, but it is very important to understand that satisfaction should be made on relevant grounds, not on extraneous and imaginary grounds. The paragraph 42, which is the concluding paragraph on word satisfied, sir, it says that satisfaction should not be drawn on basis of extraneous and imaginary factors, it should be drawn on germane factors and relevant factors. So I believe this can be a very important decision, sir, where we can just analyze the word satisfied with reference to entire jurisprudence. There they have discussed 5-judge Constitution Bench decision and other Supreme Court ruling elaborating on the meaning of the word satisfied and opinion word. So, sir, this first I told Supreme Court ruling in case of P.K. Noorjahan. Second, I am telling, sir, the Supreme Court ruling in case of 63 Moons Technology Private Limited. Third aspect, sir, I have already told 2 Supreme Court rulings that a presumption in the hands of the businessman about a credit in his books, even if it is unexplained, presumption is that it is business income. That 2 Supreme Court old rulings I have already told in 35 ITR and 34 ITR, sir. Fourth, I was telling, sir, there cannot be deeming fiction. The deeming fiction cannot be extended and it has to be interpreted in a restricted manner. I believe, sir, at this junction, before coming to 115 BBE now, it is very important to recapitulate what Supreme Court 5-judge Constitution Bench, sir, has recently held in a recent landmark case of Dilip Kumar versus Commissioner of Customs. The name of the case of 5-judge Constitution Bench is Dilip Kumar versus Commissioner of Customs. The citation of this order is 9 SCC 1 2018. It's a 5-judge bench order of Honorable Apex Court in Commissioner of Customs versus Dilip Kumar. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering plaintiff and respondent, sir. Commissioner of Customs versus Dilip Kumar, 9 SCC 1 2018. Honorable His Lordship Justice Ramana Sahab, NV Ramana Sahab is the author of this order, sir. And there, in some paragraphs, I'm not remembering the paragraph number, there they have said that how the charging provisions and the taxation provisions and penal provisions in any statute have to be interpreted, sir. So reiterating the old rule that if there is any ambiguity in the taxation law, which is charging section, which creates charge and taxability, any ambiguity is there, sir, then it has to be interpreted in the favor of assessee, is the view of Honorable 5-judge bench, Constitution Bench of Supreme Court of India, in the case of Commissioner of Customs versus Dilip Kumar, 9 SCC page 1 2018. So I believe, sir, while interpreting section 68 to 69D alongside 115 BBE, where I can say with respect the tax rate specified of 60% is not an ordinary tax rate, even it is not MMR, maximum marginal rate, it is 60% tax rate is something which is very draconian tax rate, and it has been called in some quarters as the confiscatory tax rate also. So while interpreting a provision section 68 to 69D alongside 115 BBE, in my humble opinion, one can keep in mind the 5-judge bench, Honorable Constitution Bench observations, important observations in case of Commissioner of Customs versus Dilip Kumar, 9 SCC 1 2018, sir. So, sir, the journey of section 68 to 69D in the Income Tax Act has been very long, and various judicial pronouncements have time and again elaborated the deeming fictions of section 68 to 69D. But all these sections says that, and I believe, sir, they are based on this premise and hypothesis that if assessee is entering into a transaction with somebody and he has in his specific knowledge that who is that person with whom he has done the transaction, that is the nature and source of the transaction, then first primary burden should be on the assessee to explain its case. Now, I believe in all the section 68 to 690, sir, there is the concept of shifting onus is there, shifting onus. If assessee is able to put himself by an explanation, cogent explanation, then it is very important for the assessing officer to appreciate that explanation in the right manner, lawful manner, and then throw back the burden or onus on the assessee so that onus can shift back. So section 68 to 69D has important inherent concept of shifting onus also, where although primary burden and primary onus may be on the assessee to explain a transaction undertaken by him, but once an assessee has given an explanation on the facts of his case, then it is very important, sir. Assessing officer in the Income Tax Act has been bestowed with the powers of the civil court, and there at my lords at this stage. Now, as I said, I was just humbly submitting that I have noted 5 rulings, sir, which my lords Honorable Dr. Vineet Kothari Sahab, sir, has authored in Karnataka High Court, in Honorable Karnataka High Court and Madras High Court, sir. I am giving 5 High Court decisions, sir, here, where the role of the assessing officer as a civil court and what approach assessing officer should adopt in appreciating the explanation of an assessee are very well defined in all these pearls of wisdom, sir, and in these judgments and jurisprudence, sir. One of the orders, sir, which I want to narrate of your lordship, Honorable this Karnataka High Court, where Honorable Kothari Sahab has been the author of this order, sir, is in the case of G. Subba Devi. G for Gujarat, sir, G. Subba Devi, Karnataka High Court, Honorable Karnataka High Court. G. Subba Devi फैसले का तारीख है सर 5th July 2018. 5th July 2018, paragraph number 11, paragraph number 12, and paragraph number 13. Sir, in these 3 paragraphs, in case of G. Subba Devi, your lordships have said that assessing officer has the powers of the civil code under section 131. He is required to make a proper factual inquiry into the explanation of an assessee. Reasonable factual inquiry, the word used is, sir. And then after properly appreciating the entire thing, then he has to come at a conclusion. So it is a very important order where it has been very clearly, perspicaciously said, sir, very clearly said, limpidly said, that assessing officer cannot draw the inference just without making proper inquiries into the explanation tendered by an assessee. So G. Subba Devi, sir, is one order which I want to narrate. Second, sir, on real income, your lordships have authored an order in Madras High Court, sir. And as an academician and a student of law, sir, it is my favorite order. And I generally quote in my all colloquiums, sir, this order. In the case of Jagannath Chitta, the name of the case in Madras High Court is, sir, Jagannath Chitta. Citation of Jagannath Chitta is, sir, 417 ITR, page number 61. 417 ITR, page number 61. In this order, 417 ITR, page number 61, sir, your lordship have said that concept of tax on real income exists in the scheme of the Income Tax Act. So Madras High Court, Honorable Madras High Court in Jagannath Chitta 417 ITR volume page 61 has very clearly held that concept of tax on the real income exists in the Income Tax Act, sir. Then I want to, sir, tell another ruling of the Madras High Court where your lordships have tell that the assessing officer cannot draw adverse inference against the assessee on basis of half-baked inquiry or half-hearted inquiry. Sir, this is a decision of Madras High Court in the case of T. Anni Chandra Kala, T for Tamil Nadu, T. Anni Chandra Kala. The date of this Madras High Court T. Anni Chandra Kala is, sir, decision is 1/4/2019, 1st April 2019. In paragraph number 11, sir, your lordships have said that any inference which is drawn by the assessing officer in the on the basis of half-hearted inquiry will not pass the muster of the law. So there are more decisions, your lordships, where you have time and again been, sir, I can say with great respect, and I exalt and sir, eulogize that you have been always the protagonist and the harbinger of the legal rights of the assessee, sir. There are some judgments where your lordships have said that legal rights of the assessee have to be given respect to, and you have taken a very important point, sir, that pro-revenue approach should not be there, and even CIT appeal and ITAT has to be very careful. As an appellate authority in the income tax law, your lordships have held in Madras High Court, sir, in various decisions, that they have to very carefully examine the facts of an explanation of an assessee, not just confirm the case of just by passing a non-speaking order, sir. So I humbly, sir, say with reference to all these Madras High Court and Karnataka High Court decisions, sir, that it is a settled law that assessing officer in the income tax law is having the powers of civil court under section 131 of the Income Tax Act. An assessing officer has to make meaningful and objective inquiry into the explanation of an assessee, then only derive a rational opinion. And without making proper inquiry and reasonable factual inquiry into the explanation of an assessee, adverse inference cannot be drawn under section deeming fictions of section 68 to 69D. So, sir, now I will just, since I have covered this 68 to 69D in great length, sir, and my lords have been very kind, sir, that Article 265 of the Indian Constitution, which says that authority of law should be at the back of every tax collection, authority of law. So that is very important, sir. 115 BBE, sir. Now I am coming to section 115 BBE, sir. Now the name of the section is 115 BBE is very sweet. Otherwise, I am saying, sir. But at the same time, the sweetness in the section goes when we read this section and apply this section, because it says very clearly that any income which is referred to in section 68 to 69D will be applied the tax rate, draconian and exponential and extraordinary tax rate of 60%, sir, which is not at all a normal tax rate. Sir, objective behind this introduction of this section in 2012 by the then Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee Saab, sir. The object of the bringing this section is given in the speech of the Honorable Finance Minister. And sir, it is this that to deter the generation and use of unaccounted money, section 115 BBE was brought into the law in 2012. That is with effect from assessment year 13-14, sir, 13-14. Now, when this section was brought, sir, the idea was to deter the generation and use of unaccounted money, and it is stated in memorandum also, sir, that the legislature wanted to stop the misuse of basic exemption limit, whereby the people are laundering unaccounted money. So these two words are important, sir. Stoppage of laundering of unaccounted money in the garb of basic exemption limit, and second, the generation and use of unaccounted money per se was at the legislative intent and mischief. I am saying, sir, the legislative mischief, the mischief behind this provision of 115 BBE. It is noted in budget speech of Honorable FM, also an explanatory memorandum to section 115 BBE of 2012. Sir, from assessment year 13-14 till date, as this section has been, from assessment year 13-14 to assessment year 16-17, the tax rate in this section, sir, has been fixed at 30%, fixed at flat rate of 30%. So in the assessment years 13-14, 14-15, 15-16, 16-17, the tax rate which was applicable in section 115 BBE was 30% tax rate, sir. Now till 16-17, this section was unchanged as originally brought by Finance Act 2012, sir. And it is one important thing to underline, sir, as a matter of legal understanding, that 115 BBE, when it was brought into the statute, it was never, no change was made, your lordship, sir, in the case of this section 68 to 69D. Even today, section 68 to 69D have remained the same. They have not been altered as corresponding anyway to 115 BBE. Sir, 115 BBE was brought to tackle the menace of unaccounted money and to see that the people who are misusing the and abusing the basic exemption limit, they should not launder the unaccounted money in the garb of basic exemption limit. I am reminded at this stage, sir, of the words of Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Sannyasi Rao. And the judgment of Sannyasi Rao in the income tax law has been a landmark and a milestone decision, where various principles of constitutional validity of taxing statute have been discussed, sir, by reference to entry number 82 in the constitutional list, sir, in the union list. Now, citation of Sannyasi Rao, sir, it is a very important decision in discussing and understanding 115 BB, in my opinion. The citation of Honorable Apex Court decision in case of A. Sannyasi Rao is 219 ITR, page number 330. In this order, Supreme Court, sir, in 219 ITR 330, 219 ITR, panna number 330, was dealing with the situation whether section 44 AC and 206C are constitutionally valid in income tax law or not. 44 AC, sir, was a presumptive taxation provision. 206 capital C was a tax collection at source TCS provision. Supreme Court upheld, the Honorable Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of both the provisions, appreciating that the union list, the giving power to make the laws on the tax on income other than agricultural income is to be understood in the widest manner. So Honorable Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of 44 AC and 206C, underlining that both these provisions have been brought to address tax evasion as detected by the department in some cases and in some trade sectors. So where there is a genuine objective to address to the tax evasion, Honorable Apex Court found that provisions of section 44 AC and 206C are constitutionally valid, sir, as far as entry number 82 is concerned and article 246 is concerned. Now, important observation of this Sannyasi Rao decision which I want to highlight here is that one part of the provision of section 44 AC said that no deduction will be given in those incomes in section 28 to 43C. Supreme Court says this is an arbitrary restriction. Income of the assessees who are falling in 44 AC should also be computed like other taxpayers, and benefit of deductions in section 28 to 43C must be available to these assessees also, as it is available in other assessees. And they say the restriction in 44 AC is to the extent is arbitrary, unconstitutional, and is therefore read down. So I take the principle of reading down, sir, and partial reading down, and where the Supreme Court says that the artificial restriction against the expenses carried on by the assessee cannot be there, sir. So Sannyasi Rao can be an important decision to pinpoint this fact, sir, that there cannot be tax on the gross receipt of a businessman without giving him the deduction of the expenditure which he has bona fidely incurred in carrying on his business. So I am coming to 115 BBE, sir. From assessment year 13-14 to 16-17, the tax rate has remained 30%. From assessment year 17-18, the major change happened, sir. Taxation Amendment Ordinance came, sir, in December 2016. I believe 15 December 2016 is the date, 16 December. Sir, and that taxation amendment ordinance brought in the mid of the or between the financial year, it is stated in statement of objects and reasons explaining this amendment ordinance that the object of this increase of or double of tax rate to 30 from 30% to 60%, as narrated in that statement of objects and reasons, is this, sir, that it was found that people may, it was noticed that and observed that by the legislature, that the people may put their black money, the word used in the object and reason is the black money word, sir, that people may use section 115 BBE 30% unamended rate to bring their black money into the banks and system. So government found, sir, and the legislature found that rate of 30% should be doubled to 60%. Now the idea was that the people who come for the deposits of the money in cash after demonetization, and if there is some and if there is black money, so people do not misuse the 115 BBE and pay tax at 30%. So rate was increased from 30% to 60%, is written and encrypted in the statement of objects and reasons, sir. Now when we compare, sir, the original object of section 115 BBE and the object behind doubling the tax rate from 30% to 60%, the text of the language is different and the object of the language is at different variants, sir. Because object was to address the mischief and menace of and pernicious practices of tax evasion and unaccounted money and laundering of unaccounted money, sir, and this black money. So we read the sections bare language of the law, sir, literal interpretation, then nowhere these phrases of unaccounted money, black money, etc. are used, sir. The section says wherever section 68 to 690 applied, 115 BBE might follow as a natural concomitant. So there is a viewpoint, sir, in my humble viewpoint as a student of law, that one has to keep into mind the legislative object also, legislature object also, keeping into consideration for interpreting a provision where the tax rate is not normal tax rate, it is 60% tax rate, sir. Although we have been told that when the language is simple and plain, we should not go to see what is the object. But sir, this is a special provision where having a very special rate, nowhere in my knowledge in income tax laws, the tax rate is even today is 60%. So even if some say that 60% tax rate is constitutionally valid as per Sannyasi Rao decision, sir, then also in my humble respectful opinion as a student of law is this, that 115 BBE should not be applied in a light-hearted manner unless the object of the law, which was the mischief, that is the legislative intent, it is not apparent in a case, then section 115 BBE should not be applicable. That is my humble understanding, and that for that I just rely upon one Supreme Court decision, sir, which has been just propounded by the Honorable Apex Court in the case of Sati Oil Udyog in income tax law, Sati Oil Udyog 372 ITR 746, 372 ITR page number 746, Sati Oil Udyog, sir. This was the order of the Apex Court authored by Honorable Justice Nariman Saab, sir. In this order, the Honorable Apex Court has said, sir, that if a provision is brought in the Income Tax Act with a particular purpose to address the tax evasion, unless the revenue establishes that there was tax evasion, that provision should not be applied. Sati Oil Udyog was the decision of Apex Court reported in 372 ITR 746, sir. Sir, this order has been recently followed by the another division bench of the coordinate bench of the Honorable Apex Court in the case of Rajasthan State Electricity Board case, sir. Now this Rajasthan State Electricity Board case, the Honorable Justice Ashok Bhushan Saab, sir, speaking for the Honorable Apex Court, has applied the same dictum as given by the Honorable Justice Nariman in the case of Sati Oil Udyog. So I am of the opinion, sir, I am of the humble submission that 115 BBE should not be applied in a light-hearted, casual and insocuent and in a perfunctory manner. If I say, it should be applied with great care and caution, because the rate of tax is very draconian, and it should be applied in the manner in which legislature wanted it. And that is the Supreme Court 2 decisions, sir, in the case of Sati Oil Udyog and Rajasthan State Electricity Board. Although there is one more ruling which I have given in my paper, sir, in the case of Miss Ira versus Government of NCT of Delhi. The Supreme Court ruling in case of Miss Ira versus Government of NCT of Delhi was the decision of Supreme Court, where the bench comprising of His Lordship Justice Deepak Mishra Saab and Justice Nariman Saab, as the Lordship then was, has said that the theory of purposive interpretation and Hayden's rule and contemporaneous expositio should all be kept into mind, sir. Theory of purposive construction, Hayden's rule, and this contemporaneous expositio. So in my humble opinion, sir, if in a given case revenue is not able to pinpoint with a clarity that there is some kind of tax evasion existing, then the application of 115 BBE may not pass the muster of the law. Another aspect, sir, 115 BBE has thrown up is the whether income which an assessee is declaring as sales in the profit and loss account and in his books of accounts. Now this is a, sir, case study which is happening in lot many cases which have been assessed in assessment year 17-18 for demonetization period. The facts of the case are like this, sir. Assessee is a businessman, A. He is engaged in the business only, B. There is no other source of income to him, C. In this factual background, sir, assessee happened to make certain cash sales in financial year 16-17. And when I say, sir, he has made the cash sales, the facts of the case study are like this, that assessee has not kept the name and address of the buyers. But yes, he had the stock, he had the purchases, so he made the sales. Now, assessee made the sales in more manner or increased manner as compared to the preceding financial periods. Now, enamored by this fact or more encouraged by this fact that assessee is having very huge cash sales and it was not having the similar cash sales in the earlier period, the revenue has said, the assessing officer in the assessment order says, sir, the genuineness of sales made in cash is not established to the satisfaction of the assessing officer. Now, the entries and the book entries and the journal entries and the conduct of the assessee, or I say, sir, the treatment made by the assessee of the sales in the books of accounts is like this, that he has debited the bank account, credited the sales account, you will appreciate more, sir, and then he has taken all those sales to the credit side of the P&L account, and whatever income is there, that has been offered in the ITR file. Now, assessing officer wants to say in the assessment order on various grounds. One of the ground is this, that the genuineness of the cash sales is not established to the satisfaction of the assessing officer, which cash sale has been made in the financial year 16-17, sir. So deeming fiction of section 68 is applied, or in some cases 69A is also applied, sir. That assessing officer is not satisfied with the explanation of the assessee that these sales are the assessee's sales only, and it has been treated as unexplained deemed income in the hands of the taxpayer. So the jurist asked in this case study, sir, whether this treatment under section 68 or as the case may be under section 69A, and in some cases they have not even mentioned section at all, sir, that whether this addition of the sales which assessee has already offered as income can be countenanced in the law or not, sir. So there are various rulings of various high courts. Delhi High Court in one of the primitive orders in case of JM Wire, speaking through his lordship Justice A.K. Sikri Saab, sir, has said that cash sales already offered as sales in the P&L account cannot be subject matter of section 68. The same view has been carried by the Delhi High Court in the case of Kailash Jewelry House, where Justice Badr Durraj Ahmad, his lordship speaking for Delhi High Court, has said that even if assessee has made the cash sales where there are no name and address of the buyers, but that sales have already been offered for tax in the P&L account, application of deeming fiction of section 68 cannot be upheld. Kailash Jewelry House, JM Wires, sir, latestly Gujarat High Court also speaking through his lordship Justice Akhil Qureshi Saab, sir, in the case of this Vishal Exports, which order has been later followed by Gujarat High Court Justice Harsha Devani ji, in the case of her lordship, in the case of Jinju Wadia. So Gujarat High Court has also said in Vishal Exports and Jinju Wadia, sir, that section 68 cannot be applied to the sales already offered as income in the P&L account. So in my humble opinion as a respectful academician, sir, that just because assessing officer has some suspect or has some suspicion or he harbors some suspicion on the genuineness of the sales, that suspicion howsoever great cannot make the entire sales as the real income of the assessee, sir. That is my main, and that is my quintessence, or I say the main point of my submission and argument, that if assessee has maintained the books of accounts and books of accounts are not doubted under section 145 of the Income Tax Act, and assessee has already recorded all the sales in his books of accounts, nothing is kept outside the books, sir. So to apply section 68, where assessee has maintained the books, where assessee has genuine stock, where assessee has genuine purchases, where assessee has doubt-free and defect-free books of accounts, then 68 application of section 68 in light of various decisions of various high courts and various tribunal benches should not be correct approach, sir. And it is a case of a glaring case of high fees assessment or an assessment where entire sales have been treated to be the deemed income of the assessee, sir, which already are forming part of my books, for which already I have purchased and stocks, for already I have given defect-free books to the assessing officer in the assessment. So merely because those sales are made in cash, merely because assessee has no name and address of the buyers to whom the sales are made, the deeming fiction of section 68 etc. has been applied on the suspect of ingenuine sales, sir. In my humble opinion, all this in this kind of case study, in this kind of action, sir, principle of real income, and there are various orders of honorable apex court, sir, where the theory of real income has been applied again, time and again, especially in assessments of business assessee, sir. In these cases, it is not the case of the revenue that assessee is not engaged in business or he has some other source, undisclosed source, etc. So just doubting the purchase in sales in isolation, and that too under deeming fiction of 68 or 69A, in my humble opinion, to apply 115 BBE will be wrong. So 115 BBE, sir, till assessment year 16-17 it was 30%, till 17 now from 17-18 they have made it 60%. I was saying, sir, the ordinance was brought in December 2016. Although ordinance was brought in 2016 and purpose of the ordinance was demonetization only, sir, the curious point which is arising here is while making this ordinance and giving effect to it, the entire financial year 16-17 is covered and tax rate of 60% is applied to entire financial year 16-17 and assessment year 17-18. Although the ordinance came in 15 December 2016 date, sir. So there is an academic and a live issue going on whether the tax rate of 60%, which is being specified in ordinance passed in December 2016, can entire financial year be covered, especially the period which is prior to demonetization period, that is 8th November 2016, sir. I will humbly submit, sir, that already Rajasthan High Court in the case of Deepak Maratha versus Union of India, the Jodhpur bench, Honorable Rajasthan High Court in the case of Deepak Maratha versus Union of India, has been seized of this matter and it is sub judice there, and they have taken cognizance of this issue and issued a notice to the central government. So I am of the humble opinion, I have given in my background paper also, yes, the constitutional validity of this change from 30% to 60%, covering the entire financial year 16-17, to my humble opinion, is doubtful, sir. And it is not in consonance with the legislative object also. So I humbly feel, sir, the rate of 60% should only be applicable to the deserving cases as intended by the legislature in the statement of objects and reasons explaining this change, sir, if it has to pass the muster of constitutional validity, sir. So with these words, sir, I have tried to cover 68 to 69D read with 115 BBE, that they cannot be applied in manner like light-hearted manner without discussing the facts of the case. And Honorable Madras High Court, a single judge bench decision has come, sir, and it is a reported order, sir, where Madras High Court in the writ petition has in 2020, sir, has quashed and has set aside an assessment of assessment year 17-18 and has redirected the department to make the assessment again. It was again a demonetization period assessment, sir. The case has come from Madras High Court. The name of the decision of Honorable Madras High Court is Salem Sri Ram Vilas Chit Company, Salem Sri Ram Vilas Chit Company, 114 taxman.com 492, 114 taxman.com 492, sir. Salem Ram Vilas Chit Company Private Limited, 114 taxman.com 492. In this order, the Honorable Madras High Court has said, sir, that just passing the order on the basis of the preconceived notion will not be in accordance with law. Assessee's explanation has to be objectively considered. Then assessing officer has to come to a proper conclusion, sir. Sir, in all these assessments, there is an additional angle that about stay of demand and secondly about penalty, sir. I remember, sir, there is a decision of Rajasthan High Court only in Maheshwari Agro, that where your lordships have said, sir, where the Rajasthan High Court, the lordships of Rajasthan High Court, sir, where it has been said that in stay of demand, a pragmatic approach has to be there, sir. So Maheshwari Agro is a very important and a leading order of the Honorable Rajasthan High Court, that while adjudicating on the stay of demand application of the taxpayer, all the concerned relevant factors like prima facie case, irreparable cost, balance of convenience, etc. should be taken into consideration. And if assessee has a very good prima facie case, sir, because all these rulings are already there, which covers his case on legal points and facts point. So applying Maheshwari Agro case, assessee, and Rajasthan High Court case, Honorable Rajasthan High Court decision, sir, assessee can, in my humble opinion, confidently plead for the stay of demand also. Lastly, section 271 AC, sir. There is a new section, sir, which has been brought into the law, 271 AC. The objective of this law is this, sir, that if any addition is made in section 68 to 69D, for which tax rate is prescribed in 115 BBE, then penalty will be applicable in 271 AC. There is a general penalty provision also, sir, under reporting of income and misreporting of income in section 270A. That will not apply in 271 AAC, because 271 AAC clearly says if any addition has been made in section 68, 69, etc., then applicable penalty provision will be 271 AAC and not 270 capital A. So in this special penalty provision, sir, to a special tax rate of 115 BBE, this is after tax of special tax of 60% in 115 BBE, the penalty prescribed is in section 271 AAC. In my humble opinion, sir, the language of section 271 AAC says the assessing officer may direct the levy of the penalty and the amount of penalty is fixed. So in my humble opinion, 271 AAC, the language of section 271 AAC clearly denominates that it is a directory penalty, it is a discretionary penalty, it is not a mandatory penalty, sir. The language of may direct has been there in other provisions also in the Income Tax Act, like search assessment penalty in section 158 BFA subsection 2, block assessment penalty. There the high courts in the country, including Rajasthan High Court, sir, Honorable Rajasthan High Court, has said the use of the phrase may direct clearly says that the penalty provision is discretionary in nature and it is not mandatory in nature. So in my humble opinion, just because an addition has been made in section 68, which is again a deeming fiction, it is not must that penalty will be automatically levied in the 71 AAC, as there are various rulings that it is a discretionary penalty only in deserving cases where animus. And my lords, Honorable Dr. Vineet Kothari Saab, sir, again in a Madras High Court decision, I will just narrate this order also. There is a decision of Honorable Madras High Court authored by Honorable Kothari Saab, sir, on 271(1)(c) on the aspect of animus, that there should be guilty intention, animus on the part of the taxpayer, sir, animus. There is a name of the order is K. Divakar. K. Divakar, Madras High Court, Honorable Madras High Court, 1/4/2019, sir, paragraph 8. K. Divakar, 1/4/2019, paragraph 8, Honorable Madras High Court, sir. So my opinion, sir, 271 AAC penalty is a discretionary penalty, directory penalty, not mandatory penalty. Assessing officer before levy of penalty has to apply his mind independently, impartially, objectively, then come to the view that whether addition in the deeming fiction can be a fit base for imposition of penalty in 271 AAC or not. Sir, with this I come to the end of my this parley and confabulation, and I'm really glad, sir, that I had you as one of my, sir, audience also, and very erudite man, sir. I always had a greatest respect for you. I learned a lot of good things from your personality, from your order, sir. I would just like to finish, sir, my parley or my discussion with a observations of Honorable 5-Judge Constitution Bench in a very old order, sir. And I always feel that if these observations are kept in mind, then might be taxpayer has no otherwise feeling, sir. Sir, the name of the case of Constitution Bench of Supreme Court, which I want to cite at the end, is Pannalal Brijlal versus Pannalal versus Union of India, 31 ITR, page number 565. Now this is a 5-judge bench order, sir. Pannalal versus Union of India, 31 ITR, page number 565. At page 597, it is observed, sir, and it is to be noted, I quote, a humane and considerate administration of the relevant provisions of the Income Tax Act would go a long way in allaying the apprehensions of the assessees, and if that is done in the true spirit, no assessee will be in a position to charge the revenue with administering the provisions of the Act with an evil eye and unequal hand. So with these words, sir, I am thankful and I congratulate Daga Sahab that yes, you have organized a very good show, sir. And I in this at this occasion, sir, I remember those good memories, and I cherish that, sir, that the time which I spent with late Shri BM Kothari Sahab, sir. When I came in Jodhpur, I had 2-3 colloquiums and seminars, sir, discourses where he was my session chairman. So in person also, I had received lot of blessings from late Shri BM Kothari Sahab, sir. In one sense, he was also my, sir, mentor, and he always encouraged me academically, sir. And his son also, sir, is a good friend of me. So I have a serious, sir, thankful and heartful thanks to you, sir, and all my colleagues who have joined me in this webinar, and Daga, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kapil Goyal sir, for the lively deliberation and energetic deliberation on the subject, and the command which we have on the subject was itself showing that the decisions you were referring and the basic principles you were referring, how the words in the section, like the word satisfied, like maybe imposed, the meaning which you gave referring to the various landmark decisions. And while you were deliberating, I was noting down all the cases which are not only relevant for direct tax but also relevant in each and every sphere of law, where we have to interpret the meanings of each and every word, the comma and the full stop. Everything gains immense importance. There are 2 queries on the subject, and for one of the queries we would be taking one query online, and the query would be coming from the person which you referred in the last, Shri Amitji Kothari Sahab.
Please,
And he would be joining us and would be raising a pertinent question which he has in mind, and would be a great help from you that you would answer the same.
Yes.
Amitji Kothari sir, are you online? Hello, Rohit?
I think he has joined as an attendee, so he might not able to speak. So I'll ask.
Sir, you can talk to him and request him to say what he's wanting to ask, sir.
Rohit, I would ask another query till then you ask him to join as a panelist. Okay?
I'll try.
Okay. Sir, one query is from Gautam Vaid, and should I share the query on your WhatsApp chat so you would be better able to conceptualize
You can
it?
share on my WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Arpit, in the meantime, can I speak?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir. Amit
Kapil
Kothari
ji,
has
good
just
evening.
joined us.
Sorry, sir.
Kapil ji, good evening. Very good session. It was very
Thank you,
interesting
brother.
to
Thank
hear
you. Namaskar.
हमेशा ही
नमस्कार,
आपको
sir.
सुनना बहुत ही अच्छा लगता है ऐसे, and we have been very fortunate to hear you.
Sir, I take not only your blessings but blessings of late Kothari Sahab also from you only, sir.
अरे नहीं
And
sir, नहीं sir.
today I have received blessings of Judge Sahab also. It
नहीं
was
sir.
always my dream that I should take some blessings. I will receive blessings from him.
और इसी बहाने जोधपुर आना बंद मत कर देना वेबिनार्स के
नहीं
साथ
सर,
साथ.
अभी नहीं करेंगे सर. आपके पास आना तो मैं कभी बंद नहीं करूंगा सर. You are a source of a great inspiration for me.
अरे नहीं सर, it's always very nice to hear you. So कपिल सर, एक पूछा था मैं, अगर जैसे सेक्शन 68 का एप्लीकेशन और 69 का करते हैं, your interpretation that we can also treat it as a part of business income, तो उससे क्या सेक्शन 68 नेगेटरी नहीं हो जाएगा कि?
सर एक चीज देखिए अमित भाई की, जब सेक्शन आया था 1922 के एक्ट में नहीं था, यू नो बेटर देन मी, और 1961 के एक्ट में आया, और काले खान मोहम्मद इज ए लीडिंग जजमेंट ऑफ on ki otherwise also if 68 was not there, then assessee was having onus to explain what is the nature of credit in his books. Now here it is not the question. Never section 68 was brought into the Income Tax Act in 1961 until date. I do not find any authoritative discussion of any government or the legislature. Hisab 68 का purpose ये था कि that it should also cover the cases of sales also and assessment of business income also, and this kind of cases, sir, their income, real income is far less, even if he has done wrong thing assessee. But again, it was never the object of section 68 from beginning till date, sir. That 68 can be applied in the cases of businessmen also and to the entire gross receipts of the SSC.
नहीं, that's perfectly, जो बिजनेस आपका वो इंटरप्रिटेशन बहुत ही अच्छा है, जो बिजनेस इनकम में ऑलरेडी जैसे सेल्स बताई भी है, and that sales which has been shown as income, it cannot be taxed once again as undisclosed income.
रादर बल्कि मैं अमित भाई ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि आप मेरी बात को ज्यादा अप्रिशिएट करेंगे कि जब 115 बीबी आया और जब आज 7-8 साल 115 बीबी को हो गए हैं, तो क्यों नहीं 100, जब ऐसा था तो why not section 68 etc were correspondingly aligned with 115 BB object. Even today I believe
सिंपल अनसिक्योर्ड लोन है, जो अनसिक्योर्ड लोन है और से some fictitious name है, SSC is not able to explain, तो उसको बिजनेस इनकम से क्या अपन कवर कर सकते हैं?
I agree with that. There the Supreme Court ruling in NRA Capital has come, NRA Iron 161. Now that Justice Malhotra's order is there, you know, NRA Iron 412 ITR 161. So there the identity, creditworthiness, genuineness, three golden pillars will apply. But here we are talking about, sir, I am a businessman, I am having stock, I am having purchases, I am engaged in business from long. Now they want to say कि नहीं भैया आपका सेल गलत है तो आपका पूरा सेल इनकम कैसे हुआ? That is my point, sir.
हाँ, तो क्या अपन ये एक इन्फ्रेंस निकाल सकते हैं कि जो क्रेडिट्स which has already formed part of the profit and loss account, तो उस पे ये section 68,
that is what 3 high courts in the country have held. I have told Delhi High Court, Amit bhai, this Delhi High Court decision in JM Wires, Justice Sikri's order, and thereafter Amit bhai in the case of Gujarat High Court in Vishal Export, Justice Qureshi Saab's order, and now MP High Court also. There are 3-4 high courts in my knowledge, in my paper I have given that 68 application to sales already forming part of books is not permissible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chaliye, sir, very, very nice to hear to you.
Thank you, sir. And, I feel blessed, Amit bhai.
Sir, it's a great pleasure to talk to you, sir.
अमित सर जब भी गोयल साहब से बात करते तो आपको याद करते रहते हैं कपिल जी।
सही बात है
सर, इनका आपका आशीर्वाद मेरे लिए आप हमेशा ही अमित भाई मोटा भाई रहेंगे।
अरे नहीं सर,
नहीं, मैं जब भी कपिल गोयल साहब से बात करता हूँ तो अमित सर को याद करते हैं।
अरे वाह,
सो नाइस ऑफ यू, बनाए रखिए मेरे ऊपर सर।
चलिए, you can continue with other queries, sir.
Yes, sir. I shared you the second query on your WhatsApp chat.
Just a minute here. I did not receive it, brother. Dagaji, can you send it your WhatsApp? I am not receiving it. Just a minute.
So it has been read by you.
Sir, yes. Yes, sir. I have received it. For amount deposited in bank during the period of demonetization, he says addition made in several cases invoking provisions of 69A, books not maintained. 69A deals with the matter where any financial year the assessee is found to be the owner of this. He says for 69A, the time of earning is not relevant, but the moment when assessee is found is relevant. Whether addition made invoking provisions of 69A is proper or such amount if found assessable should be assessed invoking provisions of 69. Bhatt Sahab, you can note one decision of this latest order. Your query will be directly answered, Bhatt Sahab, by this landmark and recent order of Lucknow Bench of ITAT, sir. In the case of Kanpur Organics, the Kanpur Organics citation, Bhatt Sahab, is in case of 78 ITR Tribunal Magazine, 78 ITR volume Tribunal Magazine. Bhatt Sahab, the case of the this Kanpur Organics, the facts were like this: that SSC Kanpur Organics was searched under section 132, and some documents and diaries were found which disclose some out-of-book sales, which SSC has not recorded in the normal books. When the statement of SSC was recorded, he offered that yes, I will offer these sales as income in my regular return, and that's how the statement of SSC was recorded under section 132 subsection 4, the director of the company. When SSC drawn the books, finally drawn the books and closed the accounts and prepared its ITR, by that time, Bhatt Sahab, this sales SSC has included in his sales in the credit side of P&L account. Please note this fact: SSC these out-of-book sales were taken on board and made part of the sales in the P&L account, and correspondingly, resultantly, the higher business income Bhatt Sahab was offered by the SSC. Now, AO Sahab in the assessment said ki nahi bhaiya, your income, you are wrongly shown this sales as income in your P&L account. I deleted from there and I added under section 69A. This is where your query matches. AO Sahab applied 69A section to the sales already forming part of the P&L account and books of the SSC. the Lucknow bench of the Honorable ITT say, and then applied the AOs have applied 115 BBE also. So in this Lucknow ITT recent order, Kanpur Organics, both the actions of the department are thrashed. They say neither 69A can be rightly applied because explanation of the SSC has been wrongly rejected. When sales are there, although out of book sales, and if those sales have been already forming part of books, then 69A cannot be applied. That is what this Lucknow ITT says. And second, they say there is a Jodhpur bench decision, sir, of the ITT in case of Lavish Singhal. You can note the name of this Jodhpur bench of ITT order, where Mr. Honorable Mr. Sharma Sahab, RC Sharma Sahab, is the author of this order of SMC bench. Lavish Singhal. Lavish Singhal is also a decision applied by the Lucknow ITT to hold that section 115 BBE cannot be applied and 69A cannot be applied. So, Sahab, you can refer both these decisions, Jodhpur bench of ITT decision in Lavish Singhal case, and secondly, Lucknow bench of ITT case in decision in case of Kanpur Organics. I believe they will cover this query which you have sent me on WhatsApp, sir. And in my humble opinion, this ultimate quintessence and ultimate subject matter is this: whether the explanation of the SSC on that amount of deposit which is coming in the bank account of the taxpayer, that explanation is satisfactory in the opinion of the AO or not. And if that explanation is satisfactory, then as held by these tribunal decisions, 69 or 69A, or for that matter 115 BBE cannot be applied. Even it is a matter that whether there is anything unrecorded, because when it comes to 69 and 69A, you will see that there is something which is not recorded in the books. It is not forming part of the books. When something is already in the books, then in my opinion, you can also highlight the importance of the regular books of accounts if any maintained by the taxpayer, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for replying to the query with a specific decision on the subject. And I would like to request once again to all the members that if they have any queries, they can WhatsApp me, and I would be sharing these queries with our learned speaker for today's webinar.
But sir, आप एक काम करिएगा, मेरा पेपर जो मैं आपको भेजा है ना, I have already sent my paper.
Yes, sir.
Everything
Yes,
under the
yes,
sun
sir.
and moon. I have already, brother,
Yes.
I have done 50, 60
Yes,
webinars
sir.
in last 1 month on these subjects. So everything is there in my paper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sure, sir. We would circulate.
Okay, Daga sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Thank you very much, sir.
Kapil ji, if you can
Sir
just
is
wait.
there?
Yes, sir is here. And if you can just wait for 5 to 10 minutes, that we would be concluding with a thank you message from.
No problem. Easy,
So,
aram se, sir.
Daga ji.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Vishnu Daga sir. Sir.
Rakesh sir.
Sir.
Kya RP ji?
Sir, now I would like to request our Vice President of Tax Bar Association, Shri Rakesh Bhandari ji, for giving the thank you note address for the chief guest for today's session, who to grace the occasion, who was here with us for the entire period of 2 hours, and who was listening to the views of Shri Kapilji Goyal, and our today's speaker for today's webinar, Shri Kapilji Goyal, Rakesh Bhandari ji, for the thank you note.
Good evening, friends. I, Rakesh Bhandari, Vice President, Tax Bar Association, Jodhpur. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, all the members of Tax Bar Association, on its 38th Foundation Day. I also like to congratulate all the members for the Jodhpur Foundation Day also, as we all belongs to the Jodhpur. There are two things which made me proud today to present the vote of thanks. Firstly, today is the Foundation Day of the TB and also the Jodhpur city. And secondly, I got an opportunity to thank our Honorable Justice, Chennai High Court, who is also a chartered accountant, advocate, PhD, and above all, he is the son of our Sun City, Sri Vinijit Kothari. Sir, I thank you on behalf of our entire executive committee, all the members of Tax Bar Association, and all the participants, and today's webinar for being agreed to be a part of the Foundation Day program and webinar. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much once again. I would also like to thank our today tax guru and national and international speakers and today's faculty, Advocate Sri Kapilji Goyal, for his
Sir, I am your
deliberation
brother.
on.
Sir, I am your brother only. I am your brother only.
Sir, direct and direct taxes and enriching our professional knowledge. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants and our young and energetic backstage team, Sri Ankit Malani, Rohit Jain, Ashutosh, and Arpiji, and others for making this event highly successful. So please stay home and be safe. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to share one more thing. I have just received a message from Justice Shri Vineet Kothari Sahab, as he could not share his opinion being a judge. So, but he has said that to convey his thanks to our learned speaker Shri Kapilji Goyal, and he has appreciated that it was a very detailed and a very good talk. And he has also conveyed his thanks to all the members of the Tax Bar Association for giving him the opportunity to share his views. So this was the message received from Justice Shri Vineet Kothari Sahab. Then with this,
RPG, I would like to one more thing. I also want to thank all the members who has donated their blood today in the difficult
यस
situation.
राकेश सर मैं यही कहने वाला था बिल्कुल
तो
बिल्कुल
सभी जिन्होंने भी आज ब्लड डोनेट किया और उस पूरी टीम को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जिन्होंने इस ब्लड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का इस ब्लड कैंप को ऑर्गेनाइज किया और उम्मीद करते हैं हम इसी तरीके से सारी एक्टिविटीज टैक्स बार एसोसिएशन आगे फ्यूचर में भी करता रहेगा. धन्यवाद.
thank you sir, and with
थैंक
this
यू वेरी मच सर गोयल साहब कपिल गोयल साहब
Okay, Dada sir. Bye bye. Thank you.
बाय बाय थैंक यू ओके
thank you.